I know yesterday was an incredible day for me. I hope it was for you. Yesterday morning, we talked about a few things. We talked about the importance of being centered, and we talked about the importance of being equipped, and also about how to be agile. How many of you heard at least one thing that might contribute to those pieces for you? Anybody hear anything they liked yesterday? Yeah, I see some hands in there. That's great. Anybody hear something that will keep you from being that snail on the skateboard pointing downhill and zooming away? All right. And how many of you met at least one new colleague and friend? Yeah, look at the hands there. I saw you yesterday. And I'm so glad that you've had that opportunity to spend some time thinking and making new friendships and connections. So it is our goal for you to leave this conference refreshed, with new ideas, with stronger commitment to yourself about how to multiply your influence. And this morning we have the best treat for you ever. It's my distinct honor to be able to introduce you to Justin Richardson. If you are an educator in Texas, you know Justin, because he multiplies his influence all over the state. One thing you may not know, you probably associate Justin with Lead Forward. But one thing you may not know is now Justin has his own company. And I love the name of his company. It's Waymaker. And that fits so much with what Justin does. He's one of the most soulful leaders that I think I've ever met. In the classroom, kids were mesmerized when they were around Justin. And then as a district administrator, when he was leading professional learning, there's none other that can do what Justin does. So we are absolutely delighted for you to have an opportunity to meet Justin and to hear his message. So thank you for being here, Justin.
Thank you. I have to hug.
Good. Thank you, guys. Hey, listen, it is my distinct pleasure to be here today. The keynote this morning is going to be a little different, so I'll do some talking today, but you guys are actually going to do most of the talking during the keynote today. So look around the table. Did you make a good decision with where you sit? So you sat this morning. And I want to get us started. Let's just see who's in the room for a second. So we're going to do a little "That's me," and here's the way this works. I'm going to put a statement up here on the screen. If that statement describes you, then I just want you to shout out, "That's me," or you can point, "That's her," or however that works for you. So, okay, so here we go. Let's see. Let's just check. Let's see who's in the room. First one. People think you're kind of weird. I'm not going to point to the table, but someone said, "That's me," and like 3 other people at the table went, That's her. So okay. What about this one? You take 3 hours to choose just the perfect font for this, and I see you out there. How about this? You might roll your eyes in meetings. I see you. Oh, how about this one? You're the person that types out 2 email responses. The first one is what you really want to say. Then you delete it and you type in. Careful with the send button. Okay. What about that? You get your best ideas in the weirdest places, in the shower, mowing the yard, cleaning the closet. Those. Okay, good. How about this one? At meetings, to just think about doing stuff drive you crazy. You are the let's get to it person. So I see you, Kelly, out there. I know this. Okay, or this one, you're the person who gets volunteered for stuff. Okay, here's how I know that that's really you, is because you went, "That's me," but you didn't raise your hand to do it. Or this one, someone wants to fire you, but they can't figure out how to do it. Yes. I think I found my people here, so we're good. Okay, good. Okay, listen, I'm glad to know you guys are out there. A little bit about me, Justin Richardson. This is my contact information. You guys holler at me if you want to sometime, but like Leslie said, I got a chance to, I've been leading leadership development for the best part of the past couple of decades. And I'm now off with a company called Lead Forward, had a chance to work with a lot of districts in Texas, and now I'm doing this one. And it's just looking at maybe a more soulful approach to leadership development. So if you're interested in that, come talk to us, and we'd be happy to do that. I always take along the best part of me. With this, on these, I take my family along with me. Mandy, my wife, says, no, Justin, you don't take us with you. You take a picture of us with you. And so, good point, Mandy. But that's Mandy. She is a charge nurse in ICU up in Amarillo. That's where we live. And that's the part. I always say I'm from Canyon. And people who are in Texas they'll find me at break and go, oh, Justin, we love your lake. It's so beautiful. And I go, nope, that's Canyon Lake, Texas. And they do have a beautiful lake down there if you've ever been around. It's awesome. I live in the part of Texas where there's no water above ground. We have a gigantic hole in the earth called Palo Canyon. It's kind of cool, but that's us. And so anyway, Mandy's there. She's for the best part of 26 years now has been an ICU nurse. And so I always tell people, if you look up and Mandy's staring back at you, you're in bad shape, but you're in good hands. So that's Mandy, and I love her to death. And that's my son, Jack. He graduated this year from high school. He's going on to West Texas A&M. Janelle asked me last night, what does Jack want to do? And I said, he wants to have one of those jobs where you go to the mailbox and you get checks. All right. Good luck, buddy. I hope you do well. So anyway, that's the family. Listen, today, the session I'm going to do for you guys is called Be a Waymaker. And whenever we talk about that word Waymaker, it's just this idea that you're a person that helps folks find their way, help guide them toward their purpose. And I even say sometimes it's being a soulful leader is what that is. So whenever we get into this, if you guys have been a learner with me very much, you know we're not going to sit down and be a passive learner in this. So here's what I'm going to ask you guys to do. Everyone, it's that time. Stand up. Push in your chairs. If there's something on the ground that someone's going to trip over, just set it in the floor, or set it in your chair. If you have a really expensive coffee that you got somewhere, take it with you if you want to. But the way this is going to work, here's what we're going to do. I want you to think about if you had a week or so this summer. Some of you guys will have that, some of you won't, so you just have to pretend with me. But if you had a week or so this summer to just disconnect, I want you to decide where would you want to spend that week. Is it somewhere like this? You're on a beach, it's the ocean, it's hot, you're going to do this. Or is it a place like this, in the mountains, it's cool, it's quiet, beside stream. Or it might be in your backyard with your favorite book and just hanging out. Or if I had a week, I'm staying in bed. That's what I'm going to do, okay? So would you show me on your fingers, are you a number 1, 2, 3, or 4? And when the music starts, what's going to happen is you're going to mix around the room until you find someone else holding up the same numbers, and you're going to be a pair. A group of 2 works great. Group of 3 is okay. 4 is too many, okay? So pair up when that goes. Ready, set, go. All right, thank you very much. I'll call you back. Hey, today, you guys are going to do lots of talking today. I'm just going to come, whenever I need you back, I'm going to come about right here, raise my hand like this and say, I'll call you back. Please, you're adults, finish your conversation, but within a few seconds, come on back to me, and that'd be great. So thanks for that. If anyone's still looking for a partner, just join up with whoever's there and join this conversation. So y'all, one of my favorite things to teach when I was a teacher, I liked teaching this concept of function. So whenever I was starting to introduce what functions were and algebraic thinking, those kind of things, Sherry, I see you. So one of those things is I would share, there's this thing called a function machine. And what a function machine does is you put an input in here and it spits something out over here, and then you got to figure out what the function of the machine is. What does it do? So here we go. This is not deep math. So you guys, if you're not a math person, just take a deep breath. Okay, so if I input a 2, it spits out a 6. If I input a 3, it spits out a 9. If I input a 4, what does it spit out? You're getting there, there's not, and then you would describe what does the function do. So here's what's interesting though. I've done all this leadership development, and what I would notice is I'd go out, I'd have a room full of principals or folks, and they would all sit and listen to the same input. Same presentation, they get the same tools, we'd have the same conversations, but what they did with it was wildly different. Some people would take the day that we had together and they'd make magic out of this. Other people would just pretend like I wasn't there, forgot who I was by lunch. So it was wild. And so it just caused me to think about this. And would you guys have this conversation with the person you're standing with? Why is it that as you're leading folks, think about this in terms of continuous improvement. We all have access to the same software. We went through and why is it that we can have that same access to this, but it is completely different in places? What causes some of those things? So have that conversation. I'll call you guys back in just a couple of minutes. Ready, set, go. Cool. So we're going to get this conversation. That's where I want to go with this. I'm just a curious person. So whenever those kind of things happen, that makes me think, ooh, I need to scratch this a little more and see what's behind it. And so here's another example of this. Any of you guys recognize this cityscape? New Orleans, right. Hey, listen, side conversation. Is Brandon in the room? Brandon somewhere? But all right, Brandon, if I'm lying, you go check with Brandon on this. We had the best dinner last night. My friends from Louisiana, and Jackie was there, and Latika was there. Brandon's filming this because he's going to tell Jackie this. So I said, Jackie, you're making the keynote tomorrow. I'm going to tell you. They had to go home early this morning, but Jackie says, Justin, I'm supporting this first-year teacher. He's alternatively certified as a police officer before, and he has said, you call me anytime you need some help. And so he got a letter from someone in his school, an email or something that said, hey, I need you to come together tomorrow, or I need to talk about your 504 kids. Okay. So he calls Jackie late at night, and he said, Jackie, you said if we ever need help, we could call you anytime. Jackie said, that's right, baby, what do you need? And he said, I'm telling you, I have looked through all of my student information. I cannot find any students who have a 504 area code in there. I looked at their grandparents' information. I can't find it anywhere. I died laughing. I said, but here's the thing. What's the area code in New Orleans? 504. Yeah, so he was trying his best to do this. He knew. All right, so here's the thing. I love New Orleans. I just love the soul of New Orleans. It's such a fun place. And this is a picture of Bourbon Street. Any of you guys been to New Orleans? Been to Bourbon Street? Been there on St. Patrick's Day? Taking your 15-year-old son with you on it? Not my best parenting day, but it was an education nonetheless for him. So, but the Bourbon Street is not my favorite street in New Orleans. It's one off of Bourbon Street. It's called Royal Street. You guys know Royal Street? Oh, I love Royal Street. The culture there is awesome. But if you're walking down Royal Street, sometimes you'll see a crowd of people gathered. And you'll hear this music coming from the center of the crowd of people. It's my favorite street musician in New Orleans. Her name is Doreen Ketchens. You guys know Doreen? You need to know Doreen. If you're ever in New Orleans on Royal Street, watch for Doreen when you're out there. And I grabbed a little video. I want to show you some of Doreen in action. And then I want to tell you the connection I'll make with this. So this is Doreen. The tuba player's her husband. The drummer's her daughter. I love Doreen. Isn't she incredible? But she's an example of this, y'all. I could give those same musical notes to 1,000 different clarinetists. Is that what they're called? Clarinetists. And no one's going to make that sound, right? There is something about that that's just different. And it led me to continue this conversation about why is it that sometimes that common input, she has the same notes on the page, but it sounds so different when it comes out for her. And it led me to this being part of my study. So I finished up my doctorate just recently, and this was, thanks. And this was the thing that drove my question in here. And so after all the study that I did with this, it led to the product that I produced for this is called Soulful Leadership. And Soulful Leadership, if you're interested in that, it's in I've been published in the Journal of Ethical Educational Leadership. And I got a call from the editor just recently. It said it is the most accessed article in the history of the journal. So either there's some interest in it, or my mom clicks that button a lot. So one of those two, but whatever the direction is. But that's part of the conversation I wanted to have with you guys today, is just this idea of soulful leadership. What does that mean? And the study, I had 3 findings in the study, and they related to these concepts: purpose, values, and relationship. And that's what I want to talk about today. I'm going to share some stories about these 3 things. If my stories make sense to you, if you enjoy those, I'm glad you do. But what I really hope is that my stories encourage you guys to make connections and tell your own story. That's for you. So today we're going to start out with this idea of purpose. So do me a favor, tell your partners goodbye. You can head back to your seats and we'll jump in.
Get past the people, get past the hitman. Going down to the crib.
Yeah. So, hey, thanks. So let's jump into this. I'm going to tell you some stories. The first story I tell, I call this the Windmill story. And I want you to think about this, and you can look at that photo that's on the screen. And here's a little background information for me. My family, when I was growing up, my family fell in some pretty hard times. And actually, my mom and stepdad sent my brother and myself to live with our grandparents for a while. We couldn't afford to be together as a family, so my grandparents helped us out and took us in for a little while. And at the time, it was really hard for me as a kid. I was in upper elementary school. My brother was a little younger. We went. I know now, on the other side of it, it was a blessing to get to live with my grandparents for a while. They taught me about faith and empathy and generosity, and there were all kinds of cool things that happened there. But I'll tell you, my granddad was one of those guys, everyone looked up to him. He was the most amazing person. I get tearful when I start talking about him again. But one of the things that my granddad would do is they lived near the city square, and there was a farmer's market that would happen on Saturdays. And so often we would walk to the farmer's market with my granddad, and my brother and I would go run around and cause problems or whatever, and granddad would do his thing. And there was actually a photo booth at the farmer's market. And my granddad would stop at the photo booth and look at the photos often, and he would pull people in, talk to them. He's that kind of person. Oftentimes he would point at photos and talk about these things, and we noticed that he would point at this photo often and have conversations about it. And I know it was this photo because my brother and I saved up money. We actually bought this photo for my granddad for his birthday. And we gave it to him and said, "This is that photo that you're looking at." And we just thought that was so cool. He loved it. And someone said, "Well, cool, what'd you get him?" We said, "We got him that photo of the horses, the mother horse and the colt." And my granddad goes, "I love this photo, but it's not a photo of horses. Photo of a windmill." And the windmill? Yeah, actually, if you look really close, it's a photo of 5 different windmills. Got to kind of squint. And I thought, this is interesting to me. As a matter of fact, I started looking. My granddad had another painting of a windmill in his house. And then whenever I was born, 1976, he had daughters and granddaughters until I came along. I was the first grandson. And so they got him this commemorative 1976 bicentennial windmill lawn art. That, those things that stick out in people's yards, that's a windmill. And so he has that. And my granddad was just interested in windmills. And I couldn't figure out why. And so we had a conversation with this, and here's what he talked about. That scape the landscape you see there, if you take out the bump in the background, that's what the Texas Panhandle looks like, okay? And one of the things, do you guys remember me telling you that there's not water above ground in the Texas Panhandle? It's all below ground. And if you're gonna get the water out of the ground in the Texas Panhandle, you needed one of these. Because the most important part of the windmill isn't actually the structure, it's that tank that sits down beside it. Because that's where the water goes and holds that. My mom even said growing up, she used to go with her girlfriends, they'd get in their swimsuits and go out and they hung out at the stock tank. You know, that's where they sunbathed and did those things. And so it was important, y'all. Windmills were incredibly important to sustaining life in the Texas Panhandle. What pulled water out of the ground? And, you know, I was thinking about this idea of leadership. Just the purpose of a windmill is to get water out of the ground. And whenever we start talking about purpose, what is our purpose as leaders to go through this? And whenever you think about that concept of purpose, a Harvard Business Review just put this one out recently and said, you know, we don't do that well. Not many of us actually have gone through the process of articulating our purpose together. As a matter of fact, they said that if we will stop and do that, just the practice of articulating our purpose and having the courage to live it out is one of the most important leadership development tasks we can do. And so I was really thinking about whenever I was talking to folks in this study about purpose and what does that look like? Because one of the things they told us in this study is that soulful leaders have a purpose. And so when I talked to them about that, here's what we know. Sometimes people call it know your why. I think we were talking about that earlier today. And I've also heard it, you know, there can be an organizational purpose. There's our school district has a purpose, or sometimes it's personal. But as a matter of fact, it might be both. Purpose you could have multiple purposes in your life as you're working through this one. But one of the things we started to see is that purpose often larger than us. It's about impact bigger than us, and sometimes it's even spiritual in nature. So when we start thinking about that idea of purpose, are we actually sharing that as leaders? Do we know our purpose? Do we have some kind of foundational thought about that? And purpose changes over time. My purpose when I was 14 was to be in that practice facility right over there. I wanted to play for the Dallas Cowboys. At 47, I don't want to do that at all. You know, my purpose is very different now. So it changes over time. So do me a favor, at your table, I'm not going to ask you to put it all out there for people, but if you were to just say some of the words related to your purpose right now, what's really important to you? What keeps you going right now? What is that? And I'll call you back in just a couple of minutes, okay? Ready, set, go. Hey, listen, that conversation could go all day long for some of you. So, but I would encourage you guys, get in and have the conversation. This was one of the early findings from my study, is that soulful leaders know their purpose. They know that there's something more to the job that they're doing. There's a higher calling to this, and they're brave enough to live it out. And so as you're doing this, think about that conversation. How are you having conversations with folks on your team that you're leading, that you're supporting about purpose? How are we helping them stay grounded in that and come back to it? Now, here's what I know about this. When a windmill loses its purpose, it can't sustain life in that area anymore. If you don't have working windmills in the Texas Panhandle, it is uninhabitable there. When a leader loses his or her purpose, you can't sustain what you're working on with this. It's done. And so one of the things I was asking in this study is, are there times in your leadership when your tank is empty? I'm just going through the motions. If I can just get to Friday, I'm going to be okay. You know what I mean? That formative assessment that I'm going to get in and do, I'm just doing it to be done with it, and we're going to go on. And are there times in your leadership where you are purposeful? I'm on, man. My tank's full. I'm living into it. This is good. So would you guys do me a favor? There's some paper. If you have a little paper you're taking notes on, or if there's some paper on your table, would you grab a piece and will you write down something on there for me? You can make a T-chart if you want to, or on one side, would you write empty? On one side, would you write full? empty and full? And then underneath it, on your own for just a second, what time of the year are you most, like you are purposeful? I'm on it, this is when I'm going. And is there a time of the year when you are empty? I'm just going through the motions. If I can just get through it, I'm gonna be okay. I'm exhausted. Are there months? Are there seasons? And if you've been in the school business very long, if I ask teachers to do this, could you predict which months would be under full and which months would be under empty? When there are leaders in the room, theirs usually line up with those pretty closely. I'm curious about you here. So would you, after you wrote down a few of those, will you share with your partner real quick, see what you guys put on when you're full and when you're empty? Cool. So here it is. For you guys, if you're supporting teachers, you're supporting campuses out there, think about this because there's a very predictable pattern with them. And this is my challenge for you guys. We know this is happening. How can we be more intentional about some of the actions we take to help people stay grounded in their purpose? I love going out and doing keynotes to get folks started. I have a couple of days left in August if you guys want me. But I would much prefer to come out to a district in October or February when people are starting this, right? And so let's do something in those times when we know people are going here. How do we pull them back up at that point? So a challenge to you guys is to think through that. How can we help leadership know those predictable patterns of when people lose their purpose, help put them back on their feet whenever we're there? And so that, goes back to just development of people. And I think this idea of a kind of a revolution in leadership, and I can know, Lesli, there was a time whenever being a campus principal was about taking care of the building. Then we shifted to instructional leadership, and that was a good shift as we're going. But I wonder if the new role of development, whenever it comes to this, when it comes to the role of a principal, is to be the developer of people. And be the developer of people like our future depends on it. We've got to get people back in the game with this. And how are we being intentional about our actions to keep people in this one as we're going? So what does that look like whenever we go through? So that's a thought. And again, I know a lot of people like data. I'll go back real quick. Want it? There you go. You're welcome. Cool. So y'all, this idea, if we are developing leaders well, then the research goes back and supports this. And this one was talking about, had a lot of different businesses in, and they looked at customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, overall quality of services, that when we commit to leadership development, that we're gonna outperform those as we're moving forward. So we have to think about that. But y'all, this is when we start to lose people in the field, whenever we spend too much time on empty, and that's happening. So talk to me about this. Whenever I ask folks, what is it in the study? When you start to lose your purpose, how do you ground yourself again? What does that look like? And they all describe different stuff, but here's what they had in common. Pause. And one of the things that they were talking about, some of them described it as prayer or meditation or exercise, or I just sit on the side of my bed before I put my feet on the ground and think about what I'm thankful for. But they all described pause as a practice of theirs. So what does that look like? And y'all, here's the thing, let's be real, educators, we don't do this well. True? So would you guys, again, just a quick conversation at your table, for you, what does pause look like? How do you intentionally build in pause in your life, help put purpose back in the center of what you're doing? What does that look like, sound like, feel like for you personally? I'll call you back in just a minute. Ready, set, go. Cool. Hey, I was doing this keynote for a group the other day. One of my friends was in this keynote. She came up to me afterwards. I said, hey, Jacqueline, what does pause look like for you? She said, Justin, it is exercise. Exercise is my pause. And I went, I can't relate, but I'm glad that that's your Your thing, she said, as a matter of fact, I was so inspired while you were talking, I went online and bought a Peloton treadmill. I've been wanting one, and you were the person who inspired me to do that. I said, tell your husband I apologize for that. It's like $3,000. So anyway, but that idea, we have to commit to pause, guys, and we have to celebrate that. And if you have folks that you're leading, Dale, when you pull your leaders together, ask them about pause. How are you guys slowing down? How are you taking care of each other? What's that looking like? When you pull your leadership teams together, talk to them about pause. Celebrate the fact that they're doing that. It's how when we pause, it reminds us that the direction we're going is more important than the details. And we get lost in the details with this. When we pause, it reminds us of our purpose. And it's just that take 1 second to do that and then get back into this. And that's going to be helpful. For me, when I was a district administrator, my pause was always this. My best friend was the high school associate principal, and I would go over to his office and I'd go, Cameron, I just need to go out and smell children again for a little while. I just need to remember why I do this. And so for me, pause looked like this. I just had to get out and be around kids again and remember, oh yeah, that's why we're doing that. That's why it's worth it. And I would encourage you guys, go do the same thing. Go out and be with the kids for a while, because here's what's really cool is as good as Doreen is on the clarinet, those same pieces of magic are happening up and down the hallways in your schools all the time. They are making magic with kids. It's incredible. Go stop, gather, be present for them. Put the walkthrough forms away for a while. Let's go be with kids. Watch the magic that's happening. That always was a thing that put me back on track whenever I was doing this. And so I would encourage you guys, whatever pause looks like for you, build it in. But just know it's super important. And in the study that I did, one of the findings was that soulful leaders know that there's power in pause. And they celebrate that with each other. I will tell you, to just go back to the story about my granddad for a second. My brother, actually, he was one. When granddad passed away, all the grandkids were able to go get one thing that reminded them of granddad. And so my brother actually has the photo hanging in his house right now. And I love that. All I got was this rusty old piece of lawn art. Hey, that's purpose. There were 3 findings in there. The second one was about values. And so they talked a lot, when I did this, they talked a lot about values and the importance of this. I wanted you guys to see this group for a second. Take a good look at them. These are all, a couple of years ago, these were the Terrell Bell Award-winning principals in the nation. Do any of you guys know what Terrell Bell Award is? Are there any Terrell Bell principals? So these are 8 of the top principals in the country. They're from Boston and Brooklyn and San Francisco and Arizona and Houston. And they award, each year they award about 8 principals with this. It's fantastic. One of the people up there is a good friend of mine. He called me a year or 2 ago and said, hey, Justin, we need some help. So this group, we like to get together and Zoom occasionally just to share best practices, but it's like herding cats. When we get in there, we're off topic, we're doing all these things. We need like a moderator. Would you come on Zoom and moderate our conversations for us? I was like, are you kidding me? Of course I would. That's like the best gift I could have, is to listen to the top principals in the country share their practices. And of course. I said, but it's going to cost you. I get 1 question. But then she said, okay. So I got a chance to go do that. And the question I asked the first time we Zoomed was this. I said, you guys are incredible principals. They would write stories about you. What do you attribute your success to? And they all shared some different things, but they had one thing in common. Turn to your neighbor and tell you, what do you think that thing was that they had in common? All of them, they shared some different things, but all of them had this in common. They talked about their team. They said, we invest in our team, we put them together. Our team is so important to the leadership that happens there, because one of the things they talked about is the team that they had is how they created culture on their campus. That they came together around shared values, they came together around these decisions, and that's what drove culture on their campus. And y'all, I was looking at this, there's a book called Think Again by Adam Grant. Adam Grant said it is really difficult to turn the culture of an entire organization, but you can create culture in a team. That's doable. And Adam Grant said, how do you do that? You do that through defining your values and modeling those values with each other. So these principles said, I bring my team together, we talk about our core values, who we are, and then we go out and share those core values. We lead that together as a group. And it reminded me yesterday, so I'm gonna do my best to connect some dots, but yesterday, Lesli said this, and Lesli, if I got that one wrong, you correct it, but we don't strive to be the most interesting person in the room. Be the most interested in others. And I think that idea that these principles that I was with, they could all be all-stars. They can talk about how awesome I am, those kind of things. They didn't. All of them were about being more interested and curious in their team and building up others in that. So I love that. And so this is what I would say, and just another quick conversation time at your table. Who's on your team? Number one, do you have a team? Are you pulling them together? What does that look like? And then how do your values impact your culture? Do you share those values with each other, and what does that look like as you move forward with this? So have again, just a quick conversation, about a minute. Who's on your team? And then talk about the idea of values, your core values. Do folks know those? Do you share them? How does your team impact that? And it ultimately impacts your culture. Ready, set, go. Cool. So here's what we found. Soulful leaders create culture through shared values. They talked about how important that was to them, and they built a team around those values, and that's what created culture for them. And part of this is just sharing values. How do you do that? So one of the things I asked them, what does that look like for you guys? And they shared lots of different things. But I want to go back and share this as part of my second story for you guys. If you are in the Texas Panhandle, in Canyon, Texas, where I live, you go down to the square, you're going to see this in the center of the square, the courthouse. And I put the courthouse up there as a reminder that's in Randall County. And the sheriff in Randall County, as I was growing up until just a few years ago, was my dad. That was always interesting. And my dad, one of the things about the sheriff's office in Randall County is that it was known for its culture. It was listed consistently as one of the best places to work up there. People wanted to work there. It was really, really good. And my dad would tell stories as I was growing up. I didn't really listen to him because I was too cool and knew a lot of stuff. But after he retired, and I started doing this, I said, hey, tell me one more time about that thing. I think I wised up a little bit and was able to listen to some of his wisdom. And I said, how did you create the culture there? What was that? He said, Justin, there were a lot of things, but here's one of the things that I did. And this story, the last story, do you remember what I called it? Windmill. This one is called the lawnmower. So what my dad said is that every new employee that came into the sheriff's office, that I shared this story with them. That I want you to picture this. If you're going to come work for us, here's a scenario that would happen. Here's how I want you to respond. The lady is doing the dishes in the rural part of the county, and she looks out her window. She sees her neighbor mowing the yard, and he falls down, passes out, and it appears to be unresponsive. He calls 911. My dad said, if you get the call for 911, here's what I expect you to do. I want you to beat the ambulance out there. When you're the first one on the scene, I want you to figure out what's going on, see if there's if you need to get the defibrillator out of the trunk and defibrillate, shock the person, then get it out and shock the person. If the person doesn't need to be shocked, I want you to provide CPR until the ambulance gets there. When the ambulance gets there, I want you to get out, help them take over the care of the patient and make sure everything's good. I want you to help them get the patient loaded into the ambulance. While they're wrapping things up, I want you to go into the men's house. I want you to make sure there was nothing on the stove or nothing in the oven. Grab his keys and lock the door. Then I want you to escort the ambulance to the hospital. When you get to the hospital, I want you to get out, help them get the patient out, in, stable, make sure everything's taken care of there, pass the keys off to the people who are there, and make sure that's taken care of. Then I want you to get back in your patrol car. I want you to go back to the man's house. I want you to finish mowing his yard. And that's my expectation of service in this county. That's how we're going to take care of the people we serve. Good story? That was told to everyone that came in. Everyone could tell you the lawnmower story. This is who we are. This is how we're going to take care of people. And what he was saying is we're going to serve, we're going to be responsive, we're going to be well-trained, we're going to be collaborative. You could paint those on the wall. You can put them at the bottom of your letterhead. But the story, telling the story sticks. And so part of that is, what is the story you guys tell? What does that sound like? How do you tell stories with your group? And let me encourage you guys to do this. Think about your stories, write them down, tell them. But at break, you guys need to go find this guy, Principal Bennett. Principal Bennett, wave your hands, Principal Bennett. He's over here. I'm not kidding. Go talk to him. Ask him about his newsletter. The session I sat in yesterday with him is fantastic. And the way you share your values through stories in the newsletter, here's some things that we saw happening on campus, and this is who we are. It's fantastic, man. You guys find him. And he's got a template and everything. So there you go. I hope you weren't wanting to get a snack or something at break. You're going to be busy. But that's it, y'all. And this is one of the findings, that soulful leaders tell their stories. So find those. How are you sharing your stories with folks? What help do you need to do that? Because people remember the stories as we go through. So that one's there for you. The other one I wanted to wrap up with is this idea of relationships. Relationships was another key finding in the study. And here's what I'll share with you when it comes to relationships. There are two types of people in this world, and Sam Nix helped us out with this a little bit. So we thoroughly explored this topic yesterday, this, and this. So we found in the room that there are two types of people in the world. By the way, my son saw this, and he goes, "Hey, Dad, you know what you call that one over there on the left? That's called the beard. And this one over here is called the mullet." Like, yes. So, whatever. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Let's do a little this or that. So I'm going to show you two pictures, and I want you to tell me, are you a this or are you a that? Ready? Okay, are you a this or are you a that? I can teach you how to turn those numbers off later on. Don't worry. Well, okay, here we go. Oh, this is going to be good because there's a lot of compliance people in here. Okay, when it comes to this, are you a this or are you a that? There's going to be a fight whenever this one comes down. I'm counting over your shoulder to see how many are in there. Okay, here we go. Are you a this or are you a that? That is just gross. That's just gross. Why would you do that to French fries? I don't know. Okay, what about the, are you a this or are you a that? Oh, okay, you guys turn to a neighbor, talk about this one for a second. Which one are you and why? Here's the thing, and Lesli, I love what you said. Whenever you talk about connecting the dots, sometimes it's drawing lines. Sometimes it's perspective that connects the dots. And so whenever you look at this idea that I personally, I am a big picture person to a fault. I was telling my friend Tim this morning that I was talking to Kevin the other day. I said, yeah, just doing the keynote's great. I hope after lunch that they're going to be ready to go with this. And Kevin was really polite. And then he finally said, Justin, you're going in the morning. And I was like, yeah, I do. No, I don't know that. I know I'm here. That's it. Yeah, everything else we'll figure out along the way. That's it. But when I would plan with my team, y'all, I would drive them crazy because I would start out and go, okay, here's the big picture. This is what we're going to do, And someone would interrupt me and go, like, what do we do on Tuesday? It doesn't matter. We don't even know what we're doing yet. It's going to be but the person I was with, they would say they couldn't move forward if they didn't know what we were doing on Tuesday. And I had to learn about this, and y'all, I mean, the problem is if I don't figure out how to work together with this, I'm gonna look like that. And this person's taught in junior high. I can tell by the eyes on the person that. But here's the thing with it. I was reading a devotional the other day, and this was the prayer in the devotional. I really needed to hear that because it's okay if I'm not great at everything. Let my limitations be doorways to relationships. And that I needed to hear. I need detailed people in my life to make sure I'm at the right place at the right time and those kind of things. Thank you, Kevin, again for that. So how have you guys, it's a game changer for me. Find those people that help you do that. And one of the challenges, someone gave this to me, and I want to share it back with you. They said, Justin, have you ever considered just talking, like, who are those people? So I make this slide, and I've shared it all over the place whenever I do that. If I were thinking about the people in my life, educationally, who really helped me grow into the person I am, they're here. There's others, but these people were some of the waymakers for me. And when I look at these, it makes me tearful. Think about this. And Lesli, thank you for your influence. But I want you guys to think about this. And I think, who are the people that would be there for you? And I love what Caleb said yesterday. Caleb said this: it's more than what's taught, it's what's caught from them. And I'd share this. It's not, all of the people on that slide before were brilliant people. I gained from them intellectually, but my heart caught their spirit because it's really about who they were, their values that they shared with me that shaped me. And so I want you guys, for just a second, if you turn to a neighbor, would you tell your neighbor, who's one person who would be on your slide? Who's one person that shared their values, they caught their spirit, they changed your world of who you are? Talk about that one person for just a second. I'll call you back. Thanks, guys, and I'll call you back. Listen, if that person who's on your slide is still here, send them a note sometime. Let them know what they mean to you. It will change their day for the better. So take some time to do that if you haven't yet. I want to share with you this group, and you need to look deep into the eyes of this team for a second. Have you all worked with this team before? You know who they are. You know what I mean? They're a fun team. I was at a high school recently to do some training, and the associate principal said, "Hey, Justin, I just need to let you know the U.S. history team's going to be wearing Hawaiian shirts today." And I said, okay. All right, good. So I'm glad for you letting me know that. I don't know why you did, but awesome. Sure enough, here they come in. They're all wearing Hawaiian shirts. So, hey, great, guys, what's Hawaiian shirts? Are you saying statehood or what's up? And they go, nope, it's Wednesday. Okay, what? Tell me more. You have my curiosity. They said, well, every Wednesday we wear Hawaiian shirts. And they think it's so funny, and they love it. And every first Wednesday of the month, they wear a new Hawaiian shirt, and they wear that Hawaiian shirt all month long, on the Wednesdays as they go through. They're just such a fun and funny group, and they do this, and it's their way of being lighthearted and authentic. But here's what's really cool. At this high school, guess who started wearing Hawaiian shirts on Wednesday? Students did. Yeah. One of the things I found in the study that I did was that soulful leaders value authentic relationships. Be yourself. And when you're true to that, you be yourself, others around you will give it back to you. I wanted to finish up. This is my last story I want to tell. What was the name of the first story? Windmills. The second one? This one's waffles. It's obviously one of my favorites. So I'll tell you guys this. I did a couple of days of training for a school district around Houston recently. And they booked me late. Anytime I get booked late, I try to arrange travel and all those sort of things. But I couldn't get any rental cars, so I had to use an Uber. And so I Ubered over to the hotel. When I Uber to a hotel, it means I get to eat dinner at whatever restaurant's in the parking lot of the hotel usually, right? So I decided to go eat. I go out to eat. I'm there for 2 days. I go out to eat. As I'm walking back to the hotel, I look over, and there's a little shop that's called Dalai Lama Waffle Master. I don't know what that is. I'm going inside, right? So I open the door, go inside. There are no customers in there. There are 2 workers leaning against the back counter. And I go, hey, how's it going? Tell me about this place. And so when you go in, they get you a waffle and they pile stuff on it, as you're going through, and you take it. I'm going to make this bad decision and take it back to my hotel room, so that's good. And so I go, okay, here's what I want. And they started doing this. As they're doing that, I look on the back counter, and there's an SAT prep manual. I said, oh, cool. Are you guys someone in high school? I said, yeah, I'm in high school, so studying for the SAT. Yeah, I'm taking it again because I want to get a better score on it. Are you a senior? I'm a senior. And I ask her all the senior questions, right? Where are you going? What do you want to do? Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I get to the end. She goes, okay, what's your name? My name's Justin. I said, what's your name? She said, my name's Noon, like the time, noon. Oh, nice to meet you, Noon. I said, nice to meet you too, Justin. What do you do? So I teach teachers and leaders. I'm here for this school district. I'm going to be here for a couple of days with them. She goes, that's my school district. So, oh, that's cool. I said, hey, Noon, I'll tell you what. If you'll tell me if you have one piece of advice, I've got all your principals and all the teacher leaders in the room for 2 days. What advice do you want me to share with them? He said, oh, that's a good question. Let me think about it, which is code word for this is getting creepy. Take your waffle and go home. So I was like, all right. So I said, okay, Noon, that sounds good. I'm going to hold you to it. And I'll see you later. Okay, bye. So I take my waffle. Goes delicious, by the way. So anyway, I go do my first day of training. That next night, I go out to eat, walk the parking lot, go eat. Walking back to my hotel room, Dalai Lama Waffle Masters, I think, I'm just going to stick my head in. I have to do it. So I go open the door. I stick my head in, and there's no customers again. 2 people leaning on the back counter. Noon looks up, sees me, and it's like, oh, my gosh, she's back. And I said, Noon, I told you I was going to ask again. What advice do you have? Do you want? She said, okay. She reaches in her pocket and said, I wrote it down for you. Can I read it to you? This is what she said. She said, several of my teachers thought that being a teacher meant keeping it professional. Although that's true, don't be hesitant to share who you are. Show them that you're also a person who not only teaches, but learns just like us. Share your mistakes and your jokes and your personality, and they'll return it. I feel like a classroom makes all the difference when there's room for character and individuality rather than curriculum alone. When teachers are befriended yet looked up to, learning comes easier, simply because I would actually want to hear what my teacher had to say. Wouldn't you? Here's the deal. When you get lost in what you're doing, you're not sure if it's the right direction, go ask a kid. They'll cut to the heart of it pretty quick. And I love what Sam Nix said yesterday. Don't just ask, but listen to understand what they say. And so, y'all, that's when I wrap this one up, I'll tell you, Noon gives us permission. It's not what we do. It's who we are. Be yourself. Be authentic with people. Engage with them. That's it. And so for this one, y'all, whenever we talk about being soulful leaders, being those leaders who others want to follow, I wanted to share 3 different pieces of content with you. I wanted to share about the windmill. We got to know our purpose. We have to have the power to go through, pause when we lose our purpose because we know that that's important. The other one was lawnmowers. We have to create values or create culture around our shared values. We have to tell our stories. Ask Principal Bennett, you got to tell your stories with this. And then the other one was, we need to value authentic relationships. And if we ever get lost in that, go talk to kids. That's what grounds us again. So would you guys do me a favor one last time to get to talk together with your group? I'll call you back in about a minute, but of anything that I shared or someone else shared, what was important for you to hear today? What story stood out? What message stood out? What did your friends say that was important for you to hear today? I'll call you back in 1 minute. Ready, set, go. My friends, and can I call you back? Listen, I hope you had a good morning this morning. Keep being soulful leaders that you are. Thanks for coming to the conference, and thank you for letting me hang out with you guys this morning. So it was great. I enjoyed this so much, so thank you guys very much, and I'll turn it over to